Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, August 19th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 11 days, the game against Michigan in 102 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smashburgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com. Got a chance to talk to Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, and Matt Patricia on Monday. It was the day that we had all sort of been looking at as, I wonder if this will be the day when they will announce the starting quarterback. Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com joins me. Tony, to the surprise of really probably not that many people, Monday was, in fact, the day that Ohio State named its starting quarterback. Who is that starting quarterback, and why is he the starting quarterback?
That starting quarterback is redshirt freshman Julian Sayin, and why he is the starting quarterback is he's been the most consistent guy, even starting from the first practice of spring till the very last practice recently. But he's been the more consistent guy in terms of getting the ball out and throwing it accurately, and just overall doing the things that the coach wants a quarterback to do, and knowing where the ball is going to go, knowing what the defense is going to do. A lot of the stuff that Ryan Day talked about throughout is exactly, you're checking off all of the boxes. Like, well, that sounds pretty good. Well, that's good. That's good. And something that I think what he also showed is a more of a command of the offense, the leadership aspect of it, which helps because now they huddle, and that's something that they started to do last year. But overall, can move the ball, and as Brian Hartline said, can protect the ball, which is another big factor there. So just the most consistent guy doing the routine things routinely.
And one thing that I thought Ryan Day said that was kind of interesting was he drew a distinction between a player and a professional. And, you know, these guys are, I guess they're technically professionals now because you're sort of maintaining your amateur status, but the house settlement you're getting paid by your. So I'm sort of just thinking it's true legally right now. I guess they're sort of professionals, but Ryan Day wants them to be a professional and not just be a player. What in Ryan Day's mind is the difference between a player and a professional?
Yeah, and this is the second time I've heard him talk about this in fall camp. Basically, he said, a player is learning, a professional remembers, and the problem is something else he's talked about at quarterback, where you can only play so many games over your entire life, let alone while you're just in college or just in high school. It's not like AAU basketball where you can play 10 games in a weekend. As a high school quarterback, you can play 10 games in a year. And so just the buildup of game experience takes a very long time. And even once you get into the NFL, it takes time. So yes, he'd like these guys to be professionals in what they see and how they react to those things. But you can only be so professional when you have not started any games. And the only time that Julian Sayin's been in a game is when it's no longer been in doubt. So now he's going to be in a situation where every play he makes is a critical play, and where every play he doesn't make is a critical play. And so everything is new for him, whereas the veterans, the professionals, can rely back on stuff they've been through before. It's like, well, I've done this before. I know I can handle this, or I've seen this before. I know what to expect here. Right now, Julian Sayin is just a player, but still, from what we've been told with Ryan Day and even Chip Kelly a year ago, like he's very advanced for his age. And I think that's also something that won him the job here this week.
So the quarterback position, obviously the positional battle that got the most attention this fall camp, but there's been plenty of other battles that we've been kind of keeping an eye on. We did a show sort of predicting where all of those were going to end up on the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed. One for one there. Check mark next to Julian Sayin. We both got that one correct. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the safeties, because that's one where it's not necessarily, a quarterback, you're going to play one quarterback, and so it's just they're going to say one name, and that's the name. It doesn't sound like it's necessarily quite as clear-cut at the safety spot.
Yeah, it sure sounds like both Jalen McClain and Malik Hartford are going to play. And I thought it was funny, Bill Rabinowitz of the Dispatch asked Ryan Day, like, so do you, talking about these two guys but not mentioning their names, like, do you have a leader at safety? And Ryan Day's, yeah, we got a leader at safety. His name is Caleb Downs. I was like, well, what about the other two guys? And so it just, they're still competing, and they feel like both guys can play. And then when Matt Patricia talked about him, he's like, there's some different things that they can do. Like they're not the same player, basically. So What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? That will also factor in. But it sounds like all three guys are going to play against Texas, and they feel pretty good about it. But, what we see in week 1 may not be what we see in week 2, or may not be what we see in week 4. It just depends with these three guys, and of course, specifically McLean and Hartford.
All right. So from one guy at quarterback to 3 guys at safety to 5 guys plus the backups at offensive line. Ryan Day did not announce the whole offensive line. He has announced his starter at left tackle, and then it sounds like there may not just be 5 guys on the offensive line this year.
Yeah, well, and in fairness, Ryan Day, he was pestered to get that one name because he said, we've got 5 guys that we feel good about starting, and then, 6 and a 7 that could probably rotate in. And of course, he's not giving any names. And then about 15 minutes later, somebody came back and asked about, so is Austin Searveld still your left tackle? He's like, I'll give you one name. Basically, yes, he's going to be starting in left tackle, but that's it. I'm not giving you anything else. And so, we'll know when everybody else knows when they trot out there for that first drive. But whoever trots out there for the 5th drive may be different. So he didn't seem opposed to getting extra guys in, but basically they feel good about 5 and would like to see a little bit more from 6 and 7. But how do you see that? You throw them into the action.
I do like the Pawn Stars press conference. I'd like to know your starting offensive line. Left tackle is best I can do. So we'll see if we can continue to negotiate with Ryan Day at future press conferences.
He wouldn't even name the starting center. And it's like I think we have a pretty good idea of that one.
Yeah, we're pretty sure that's going to be Carson Hinsman. I think we have a pretty good idea left to right where that's all going to be, but we'll see how that all shakes out. He also put some, not names, but numbers out there in terms of the running back position and the linebacker position. And the good news is they have a pair and a spare at running back, but the bad news is we don't know who those guys are yet. Well, we probably do, but we don't officially know who those guys are yet.
Right. And he said they have 3 guys that can play. And so I did ask, because we're going to assume it's Bo Jackson as that number 3, true freshman. But I wanted clarification so we don't have to just assume. So I did ask, who's going to be that number 3, and he didn't want to get into that. And when you don't want to name a freshman jumping an older player, then you'd probably not name the person, is kind of how I'm viewing it. If it was Samuel Dixon, he'd probably just say, yeah, it's Sam right now. So that's just me reading between the lines, and also having heard how well Bo Jackson is doing, I'm going to assume he's number 3 right now. What I think is pretty impressive is that they say, whoever that number 3 is, call him Joe Baxon or whatever. Sounds like if he plays against Texas and that game is close throughout, that is a huge glowing neon sign about how they feel of him.
Bo J. No, that's too obvious. B Jackson. Yeah, we'll see who that is. We'll see who that 3rd running back off the bench is. Linebacker, that's another spot where it feels like the top 3, much like the top 2 at running back, is pretty clear cut. The top 3 at linebacker is pretty clear cut. But again, Ryan Day said they feel pretty good about 4 guys, but didn't want to go into specifics on any of them right now.
Yeah, and that was another one that I asked. Same question. You said 3 running backs, 4 linebackers. Who are those? Who's that 3 and who's that 4? And he shook his head. He's like, I knew you were going to ask this, and I'm not going to tell you. But the question is, so is that 4th guy, is it Riley Pettyjohn, true freshman? Is it Garrett Stover, redshirt freshman, the more experienced guy? But everything we've seen and heard about Riley Pettyjohn has been glowing, and he's advanced for his age, and he's this and he's that, and he's big and he's fast and he's athletic. So again, this feels like a situation where if it was the older guy, you just say it's the older guy. But again, that's just me, thinking like a coach not wanting to necessarily mention a true freshman and ignore the older player, because he's also like, I don't want to get phone calls from parents and things like that, as he always says when he doesn't want to name names. But that's kind of the way I'm viewing it right now. Am I crazy?
Well, if you're going to have Bo Jackson be the 3rd running back, and you're going to point to, hey, well, he just lost his black stripe. Well, Riley Pettyjohn also just lost his black stripe. And that is basically, they say you lose your black stripe. That's congratulations. You're officially a member of the team. You're ready to be in this, in that conversation to play and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't think it's outrageous to read that into that. One other player who just recently lost his black stripe is Nick McLarty, the punter. but that one may be too close to call still.
Yeah, and he said both are playing well right now. Either one of them could be the guy at Texas, and I think he said both could punt at Texas, and I don't know if we'll see that. But you got a long-range punter and a short-range punter, your accurate punter, and your bomb guy. But he said Nick McClarty's been doing really well, is more consistent, and that Joe McGuire has been improving as well. So it looks like he feels pretty good about where they are there. And I think if you've improved from last year, then there's reason to be happy about that, because I think they got enough last year. They won a national championship, but the punting was not a weapon. If it could become a weapon this year for this defense and set up the offense and a young quarterback, I think that could be something that we're not talking about enough.
Yeah, if your defense is not quite what it was last year, and I don't think anyone has the right to expect it to be, because that was one of the best defenses in the last 10 years of college football, then you're going to have to find some extra yards somewhere, and that may be, you get a first-time starter quarterback, and you've got, so you may have to find some of it on special teams. One other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, we're sort of having the interpreting non-answers show, which is not going to make a real exciting headline. I'll have to come up with something else for a show title other than things we didn't learn when they tried to answer not answer questions. But the question about where Brian Hartline is going to be on game day, because to me, this feels like a very obvious answer. You got Ryan Day on the sideline. You're going to have Tyler Bowen probably on the sidelines. So, yeah, of course, you're going to have your offensive coordinator up in the box. They've had a couple scrimmages to sort of get this figured out, and Brian Hartline didn't just come out and say, yep, here's the plan.
Yeah, he said they have not decided on that. They've had conversations, but they haven't decided, or he said the final decision has not been made. So I guess we can just take him at his word. And it'll come down to where they can be most organized and communicate the best, which is exactly what Chip Kelly said last year. And he'd always been calling plays from the sidelines. And then when that first game was there, he was up in the press box. So I would expect that same thing to happen, because if you want to be organized and you want to be able to communicate without all of the chaos going around you, granted, the press box where I am can be a little chaotic because I've got Tim May sitting next to me, Marcus Hartman, and Kevin Noon. But it's a little bit more organized in the coach's side of things. And then he was asked, would you be comfortable upstairs? Because he's never done it before. He said, I'll make anything work. I'm not focused on that. So it doesn't sound like it would be a huge issue. But, we thought it would be interesting to see where Chip Kelly was last year, and then he handled being upstairs just fine.
Yeah, so we will find all that out for sure in 11 days. Definitely the biggest thing we will find out on that first Saturday of the college football season, the first full Saturday anyway, first Saturday of the college football season, coming up in just 4 or 5 days. I mean, it is getting here soon. Week 0 coming up on Saturday, and then the Buckeyes and Texas, number 1 versus number 2, coming up in just over a week and a half. We will be there for a full, long day of coverage. The final college game day for Lee Corso is, maybe one of the 5 biggest storylines of the day. That is going to be a crazy day full of incredible content. We will have all of it for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. All the coverage you've come to know and love, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com, YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Make sure you are subscribed in both places, because we're going to have a ton of content coming for you in the countdown to that game. And then, of course, once that game is over, oh boy, will there be stuff to talk about one way or another. We'll be there to talk about it all for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.